Daniel thought he had pulled off the perfect lie, juggling his phone like it was a secret weapon, believing Lisa would never see the truth. But one small slip changed everything. She wasn't snooping. Not really. Yet a tiny notification blinked across the screen, and curiosity pulled her in, and the moment her thumb swiped open Daniel's chat app, her world shifted instantly. The messages weren't vague or casual. They were flirty, personal, and unmistakably aimed at someone else, someone outside of their relationship, and the disbelief hit Lisa like a punch to the chest. Her hands shaking, her heart racing, and every word she read burned through the trust she had built over 2 years. The room felt smaller, air heavier, and the romantic dinner Daniel had been so smugly preparing suddenly became irrelevant, meaningless, because betrayal had arrived uninvited, sitting across from her. Hey everyone, I'm Lily, and welcome back to Reality Drama Files. Make sure to hit subscribe, because today we are diving into one of the most shocking and emotional confrontations we've seen on 90 Day Fiancé Happily Ever After. And don't forget to comment down below what you would do if you were in Lisa's shoes, because trust me, this isn't just drama, it's chaos unfolding in real time. Lisa stared at the screen, trying to reconcile the man she thought she knew with the messages right in front of her, each line revealing Daniel's attempts at charm, laughter, and plans to meet, all while pretending to be busy with work, and every new notification felt like another betrayal piling up, testing her patience, her judgment, and her heart simultaneously. And as she held the phone, trembling yet determined, a sinking realization set in that what she saw was only the tip of the iceberg, that Daniel's secrets might stretch far beyond the flirty words glowing on the screen. Lisa's hands were still shaking as she turned toward Daniel, her eyes wide, voice trembling, but sharp enough to cut through the room, asking him directly how long this had been going on and why he thought she wouldn't find out. Daniel froze for a moment, his confident smile faltering, then tried to play it off, claiming it was nothing serious, insisting the messages were innocent jokes, harmless conversations that didn't mean anything. But Lisa didn't need him to explain, because every word on that screen told a story he couldn't erase. The camera captured the tension perfectly. Every pause, every gulp, and every fleeting expression on Daniel's face, revealing guilt and panic in ways his words never could. It's interesting to see how someone under pressure behaves. Often the lie starts small, a text here, a flirt there, then snowball into a tangled web where the liar believes a single lie might protect them, not realizing that the more they hide, the more obvious their pattern becomes, and viewers can almost feel the cognitive dissonance as Daniel flails between charm, denial, and defensiveness, trying to navigate a trap he set for himself. Lisa's face shifted from shock to hurt to anger as she recited lines from the chats aloud, each syllable feeling heavier than the last, exposing not just flirtation, but deception layered over months of what she thought were honest moments. She asked him why he risked their relationship, and Daniel's responses felt rehearsed, shallow, and unconvincing. Because when trust is broken, words lose their power and actions scream louder. Just when the room seemed to catch its breath, Daniel's phone buzzed sharply on the counter. A new message flashing across the screen, instantly reminding everyone that the story wasn't over, that the depth of his deception might still be hidden, and forcing Lisa to question whether what she had already seen was only scratching the surface of Daniel's secret world. By the time Daniel's friends and family arrived, the tension in the room had become almost unbearable, like a storm hovering just above the ceiling, and everyone could feel it the moment they walked in. Lisa's hands still gripped the edge of the table, her eyes darting between Daniel and the group, struggling to process the betrayal while trying to hold herself together. Some of Daniel's friends tried to smooth things over, offering hesitant explanations. Maybe it wasn't serious, he didn't mean anything by it, but their words felt hollow, like paper shields against the sharp sting of the evidence. Others, more blunt, didn't hold back, pointing out how patterns of secrecy and flirtation rarely just vanish, how warning signs often get ignored until trust finally snaps, and their anger only mirrored Lisa's own simmering emotions. Family members weighed in too, protective and shocked, asking pointed questions that left Daniel stumbling, unable to reconcile the casual tone of his excuses with the damning screenshots displayed in Lisa's hand. Watching Lisa navigate this emotional chaos was striking, part of her wanted to scream, to walk away immediately. But another part of her remembered the love they shared, the memories, the plans, the life they had begun together. The tension of choosing between trusting the man she loved and protecting herself from further heartbreak created a silent battle within her, and it was visible to everyone, unspoken yet palpable. As the room buzzed with conflicting opinions, Daniel shifted uncomfortably, glancing at his phone, and one of his friends leaned in, half smile, half serious, dropping a hint about another conversation Lisa hadn't seen yet, a conversation that might explain or worsen everything. And just like that, the atmosphere grew heavier, thick with anticipation, leaving Lisa and the audience hanging, questioning how deep Daniel's web of secrets might truly go. Within hours of the confrontation, clips of Daniel's messages and Lisa's raw reactions started circulating online, exploding across social media like wildfire, and suddenly, what had been a private nightmare became public spectacle. Fans dissected every glance, every pause, every trembling word, turning the intimate heartbreak into trending hashtags and viral clips, some laughing, some gasping, and many expressing outrage at Daniel's behavior. Memes appeared almost instantly, exaggerating his awkward excuses, his stammering, even the way he fiddled with his phone, and the comments section became a battleground of judgment, empathy, and speculation, with strangers analyzing patterns of flirtation, trust, and accountability as if they were detectives in a live trial. The contrast between Lisa's private heartbreak and the public's voracious appetite for drama created a strange tension. She was grieving, processing betrayal, trying to decide what to do next, while millions of viewers offered opinions, critiques, and unsolicited advice, intensifying the pressure on both of them. Psychologically, being under this level of scrutiny can amplify emotions, heighten stress, and force reactions that might otherwise remain private. And for Daniel, the combination of guilt and public exposure made him visibly uneasy, pacing, shifting his tone, and realizing that every attempt at explanation now carried consequences far beyond the walls of their home. Watching his behavior unfold online, seeing screenshots, commentary, and fan theories spread like wildfire, Daniel understood that the stakes were no longer just the trust of one person, Lisa, but the judgment of thousands of strangers, all witnessing and dissecting his decisions in real time. And as he glanced at notifications blowing up across his social media accounts, the sinking realization hit him. His secrets were no longer confined to his phone, and the fallout, both personal and public, was only just beginning. As Lisa scrolled further through Daniel's messages, her stomach dropped at the sight of a conversation she hadn't seen before, one that was far more intimate and revealing than anything she had encountered in the initial shock. This wasn't just casual flirting or harmless jokes. This was planning, attention, and words that suggested intentions she hadn't imagined. A layer of deception that made every excuse Daniel had given about work, meetings, or late nights feel hollow and rehearsed. Each message peeled back another part of the image Daniel had carefully built over months, exposing a man who had been juggling lies, presenting himself as committed and attentive, while secretly maintaining a hidden life that contradicted everything Lisa believed. The emotional impact hit her in waves, alternating between disbelief at the depth of the betrayal, anger at the deliberate manipulation, and heartbreak for the trust that had been shattered in what felt like a single, crushing moment. She replayed scenes from the past weeks in her mind, noticing small inconsistencies she had ignored or rationalized, now illuminated in a harsh, unforgiving light. The tension in her chest tightened as she realized this wasn't an isolated lapse in judgment. It was a pattern, a web of choices that demanded answers, and every instinct in her body screamed that the next confrontation needed to be absolute, deliberate, and undeniable. As Daniel watched her from across the room, unaware that she had uncovered this hidden layer, Lisa's mind raced, weighing her emotions, considering the timing, and preparing herself to face the full truth head-on. She made a quiet, firm decision to gather all the evidence, screenshots, and context before initiating the ultimate confrontation, knowing that revealing everything at once was the only way to ensure clarity, accountability, and the chance for closure. The storm hadn't broken yet, but she could feel the first thunderclap rolling in, and the next scene promised to push them both to the edge in ways neither could predict. Lisa finally stood face to face with Daniel, her voice steady but edged with exhaustion as she demanded the full story, every lie laid bare, every secret explained, and the room seemed to shrink around them as the weight of months of deception pressed down. Daniel inhaled sharply, trying to frame his behavior as a response to stress, workload, and the pressures of maintaining appearances, claiming he never intended to hurt her and that the messages weren't serious, but every justification sounded thin against the backdrop of the screenshots she held, each one a silent witness to the choices he made while pretending to be present and committed. Psychologically, betrayal often triggers a cocktail of denial, rationalization, and self-preservation, and Daniel's attempts fit that pattern perfectly. He wanted empathy, understanding, a chance to reset, while Lisa needed clarity, honesty, and respect for the trust that had been broken. Her eyes searched his face, trying to reconcile the man she loved with the one who had orchestrated hidden connections behind her back, feeling her heart clench with a mix of disbelief, pain, and lingering hope that maybe some explanation could redeem him. Every word Daniel spoke opened new questions in her mind. Why now? Why her? Why not tell me? And the room seemed to pulse with tension as the conversation teetered on the edge of reconciliation or complete collapse. Just when it seemed the dialogue had reached its limit, Daniel's phone buzzed sharply on the counter, lighting up with another message, another piece of evidence that no one had seen yet, and instantly the stakes jumped higher, making it clear that the truth had more layers than Lisa had anticipated, and that the next moment could either close the door entirely or force her to confront an even deeper level of betrayal she hadn't been prepared for. Lisa's composure finally cracked, and the floodgates opened as tears streamed down her face, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the table, trying to ground herself while every memory of trust, laughter, and shared moments collided violently with the reality of Daniel's betrayal. Her voice wavered, but carried undeniable strength as she demanded to know why he had risked everything they had built, why he had hidden messages that were clearly more than casual, and why the person she thought she knew had chosen deception over honesty. Daniel fumbled, glancing down at his hands, avoiding her gaze, offering explanations that felt rehearsed and hollow against the emotional storm in front of him. The cameras captured every heartbeat, every inhale, every flicker of regret and panic in his face, while viewers could see Lisa's vulnerability laid bare, the fracture in their relationship widening with each revelation. Emotional responses to betrayal are intense because trust forms the foundation of attachment and security, and when that foundation is broken, the mind reacts with a mix of grief, anger, disbelief, and hyper-awareness of every inconsistency or slight, which explained why Lisa's body language, tone, and expressions were as powerful as the words she spoke. Daniel's attempts to justify himself, claiming stress, loneliness, or miscommunication, clashed with the undeniable evidence, magnifying the sense of emotional devastation. She paused, taking a shaky breath, trying to decide whether the man in front of her was truly the person she had loved or someone else entirely, a question that hovered like a shadow over the room. And just as the intensity seemed unbearable, a subtle ping from Daniel's phone caught her attention, signaling yet another message, a piece of the puzzle he hadn't yet revealed, and instantly the room seemed to hold its breath, because whatever he hadn't admitted promised to shake the situation even further, leaving Lisa and the audience on edge. Just when it seemed the confrontation had reached its peak, Lisa's eyes landed on a message she hadn't noticed before, buried in the chat history like a ticking time bomb, and her breath caught instantly. This wasn't another casual comment or half-hearted flirt. It was detailed, personal, and unmistakably intimate, exposing a level of deception that made every previous excuse Daniel had offered crumble entirely. The confidence he had tried to maintain vanished in seconds, leaving him visibly panicked as Lisa read each line, her expression a mixture of disbelief, heartbreak, and simmering anger. Around them, the room seemed to close in. Friends and family who had been watching exchanged stunned glances, some furious, some speechless, all feeling the weight of the betrayal in real time. Their voices added to the chaos, opinions colliding, questions flying, some trying to defend Daniel, others demanding accountability, and in that moment, Lisa was forced to navigate not just her own emotions, but the collective shock of everyone around her. Social media buzzed as clips of this revelation spread, reactions flooding in from fans dissecting every detail, comparing timelines, and debating the morality of Daniel's choices, and the public scrutiny only amplified the tension in the room. Lisa's mind raced, struggling to reconcile the man she loved with the one who had hidden these conversations. And the question loomed larger than ever. Could trust ever be rebuilt after something this deep? Daniel, seeing the scale of the damage, sank to his knees, voice trembling, begging for one last chance, promising he would change, pleading for forgiveness. But Lisa didn't move. She turned slightly, uncertain, caught between love and self-preservation, leaving the scene suspended in tension. The audience holding their breath, wondering if the fractures in their relationship were repairable, or if this revelation had permanently shifted the course of their story. Lisa finally lowered the phone, her body trembling, every part of her exhausted from the intensity of what she had just uncovered. She needed space, a moment to breathe without the weight of Daniel's words, without the evidence flashing in front of her, and without the chaos of friends, family, and cameras all watching. Stepping back wasn't surrender, it was survival. She walked toward the door, slow but purposeful, her heart heavy with sadness and anger, her mind spinning through every memory, every promise, every moment of trust that had been broken. Daniel stood frozen, the reality of the situation hitting him in waves. Alone, surrounded by the echoes of the confrontation, he finally had to face the consequences of his choices. The way his deception had shattered not only Lisa's trust, but also the sense of safety in the relationship, and the creeping awareness that nothing he said now could undo the emotional damage already done. The room was silent except for the faint hum of notifications on his phone, reminders that the story was no longer private, that social media was dissecting his every move, and that judgment had extended far beyond the walls of their home. The audience, watching the drama unfold, felt the raw tension, the heartbreak, and the uncertainty of what would come next, unable to predict whether Lisa would return, whether Daniel could make amends, or whether the cracks had become permanent fractures. Emotions hung thick in the air, a mix of shock, sadness, anger, and suspense that refused to let go. And as the camera lingered on Daniel's hesitant movements and the unopened messages blinking insistently on his phone, viewers were left wondering what hidden truths might surface next, teasing an even deeper layer of drama to come in the next video, where the fallout from betrayal promises to escalate even further and keep everyone questioning how far the consequences of lies can reach. The storm of emotions, messages, and confrontations left a clear picture of what happens when trust is broken and secrecy takes over a relationship. Daniel's repeated lies, hidden conversations, and attempts to minimize his behavior created a chain reaction of heartbreak, anger, and confusion that no quick apology could fix. Watching Lisa navigate her shock, grief, and conflicting feelings reminded everyone that betrayal isn't just about the act itself, it's about the ripple effects it has on both partners, the people around them, and even the audience watching unfold in real time. Honesty and transparency form the foundation of any relationship, and when that foundation is compromised, the fallout is inevitably public, private, and emotionally exhausting. It also shows how behavior patterns, even when excused by stress or external pressures, must be addressed with accountability, because the emotional impact of repeated secrecy can linger far longer than anyone expects. Observing both Lisa and Daniel provides insight into human behavior, how people cope with betrayal, how guilt manifests, and how one person's choices can force the other to reassess not just their partner, but themselves and their own boundaries. As the dust settles, questions remain. Will forgiveness ever be possible? Can trust be rebuilt? And how far will the consequences of these actions extend? For viewers who have followed every twist, every tear, and every hidden message, the story isn't over. And the next chapter promises even more revelations and emotional challenges, digging deeper into the aftermath of deception and the choices that determine whether relationships survive or fracture completely. Stick around for the next video where we uncover more shocking reactions, hidden truths, and the dramatic fallout that continues to unfold. Because with this story, every answer seems to lead to a new question, and every step forward feels more uncertain than the last, keeping everyone on edge and wondering what will happen next. Lisa couldn't believe what she was seeing, her hands shaking as the thought hit her. Had everything between her and Daniel been about love, or had she simply been a step in someone else's plan? The question tore through her mind with a force she hadn't anticipated, leaving her stunned, speechless, and suddenly aware that nothing in their relationship had felt quite right for months. Hi, I'm Lily, and welcome back to Reality Drama Files, where we uncover the twists, the tension, and the truth behind your favorite 90-Day Fiancé moments. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment below. What would you do if you realize your partner might have been playing a long game all along? The first hint came subtly, almost invisible if you weren't paying attention. Daniel had started keeping documents hidden, filing forms she wasn't told about, making appointments on his own, speaking to lawyers in hushed tones, and slowly changing the way he spoke to her. The way he touched her. The way he laughed at things that used to bring them close. At first, she tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was just being responsible. Maybe he was stressed. Maybe this was normal. But the quiet, the secrecy, the small signs kept piling up, and soon the rationalization stopped making sense. And then she overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. A string of words in his native language she didn't understand but couldn't ignore. 2 more years. Permanent, then freedom. It wasn't just the words themselves. It was the way they hung in the air. The way they made her suddenly look at every smile, every touch, every promise in a completely new light. Affection had cooled after approval. Therapy sessions had been refused, finances avoided, and the lingering question hovered. Had Daniel ever really chosen her for who she was, or for what she represented? And as she stared at the papers she'd found, it became terrifyingly clear. The paperwork was only the surface, the visible part of something far deeper, far more calculated, and far more emotional than she could have imagined. From the outside, it looked almost normal at first. On screen, Daniel was carrying stacks of papers, signing forms, and making phone calls that Lisa didn't know about. She noticed appointments booked in his name alone, trips to lawyers she had no idea existed, and folders labeled in ways that didn't make sense to her. At first, maybe it wasn't suspicious. Some couples handle paperwork separately, especially with immigration cases. It can feel safer, more organized, or just easier to manage. But the way he moved, the secrecy, the defensiveness when she asked simple questions about the forms, started to shift the picture from routine to unsettling. Viewers saw her pause, pick up documents left on the counter, and study them closely. Dates, stamps, signatures, evidence of actions taken without her knowledge. The more she looked, the more she realized that independence in this case didn't feel neutral, it felt strategic. The receipts were there. Small but undeniable, the lawyer's business card tucked into a folder, a calendar marked with meetings she wasn't told about, emails confirming forms had been filed weeks earlier than she knew. It wasn't illegal or even abnormal. But in the context of a relationship, it raised questions about trust and transparency. Why hide the steps if this was truly a partnership? Why consult alone when joint decisions were expected? At the same time, it was easy to imagine an alternate view. Maybe he thought he was sparing her stress, handling logistics so she didn't have to worry. Maybe he believed the paperwork was purely administrative. Yet every unanswered question, every avoided conversation, every carefully timed excuse created tension that couldn't be ignored. And then came the phone call. Lisa overheard it while doing chores in the next room. Daniel's voice was quiet, but clear enough to make her freeze. 2 more years, permanent, then freedom. Those words cut through the possibility of innocent intent. They hinted at a plan she hadn't seen coming, a motive layered beneath the paperwork that suddenly made everything on screen feel far more significant than it had before. Lisa froze, the broom slipping from her hands as the words reached her ears, echoing in a way that made her stomach twist. 2 more years, permanent, then freedom. She replayed them in her mind, over and over, trying to make sense of what she had just heard. On the show, viewers saw her pause, silent, lips pressed tight, eyes darting toward the room where Daniel was speaking in his native language. The meaning hit slowly. Permanent wasn't just a word, it referred to permanent residency, the official legal status that allows someone to live and work in the United States indefinitely, but doesn't automatically guarantee citizenship. To an ordinary partner, it might seem like planning for stability, building a life together. But to Lisa, in that moment, it felt more like a countdown, a marker for freedom, his freedom, her place in the equation uncertain. The logical tension was unbearable. Was Daniel thinking about creating a shared future with her? Or was he calculating an exit strategy once the paperwork guaranteed his independence? Everything he had done in the past months, the solo lawyer visits, the hidden forms, the cooled affection, suddenly fit a pattern. From a psychological perspective, what she was sensing wasn't paranoia, it was instinctive detection of someone weighing security against strategy. Stability for one, leverage over another. On camera, Lisa later confronted him, her voice tight but trembling. "Did you marry me for a green card?" The air seemed to pause. He leaned back, arms crossed, a half smile curling on his lips, dismissive, as though her question were absurd. "You think too highly of yourself?" he said casually, almost flippantly, and then laughed. Not nervously, not apologetically, but in a way that turned what should have been a moment of clarity into a wall of confusion, leaving Lisa and the viewers wondering what the real motive had been all along. His reaction didn't just answer her question, it reframed the entire relationship, leaving her to process whether affection had ever been genuine or simply a tool in a longer plan. The laugh hit Lisa harder than any denial ever could. On screen, it looked almost casual, a small tilt of the head, a fleeting smile, but anyone paying attention could see the weight behind it. It wasn't just a laugh, it was dismissal, a message that her fears, her questions, her very presence in that moment were somehow an overreaction. Emotional invalidation like this cuts deeper than lies or infidelity because it attacks your perception of reality, making you question whether your instincts are wrong, whether your feelings are unreasonable. And on reality TV, every dismissive gesture is amplified. Viewers could see her pause, the tension stiffening her shoulders, the way her eyes searched his for the reassurance that would never come. Daniel doubled down publicly as well, framing Lisa as insecure and jealous to the rest of the cast. From his perspective, he might have been protecting his own narrative under the pressure of cameras, knowing that any sign of weakness could shift public opinion. It's fair to acknowledge that public scrutiny affects behavior, that some people act differently on camera than off, but the pattern of dismissiveness wasn't confined to an isolated scene. It spilled over into everyday interaction. Affection had noticeably cooled after the approval process, subtle gestures disappearing, warmth replaced by distance. Hand-holding became rare, compliments faded, late-night calls stopped, the very rhythm of their connection shifted. Viewers could sense that something deeper was going on. Therapy was refused, a resource that could have eased tension or clarified intention. Financial transparency was avoided, creating another layer of mistrust. Every unspoken boundary, every avoided conversation reinforced the same nagging suspicion that Daniel's focus had shifted from partnership to self-preservation, from connection to calculation. The camera captured it all, leaving audiences to wonder whether the coolness and dismissiveness were mere personality traits, stress reactions, or signs of a carefully maintained fate hiding motivations Lisa had only begun to suspect. The difference in energy was noticeable to anyone watching. During the engagement phase, Daniel had been attentive, responsive, and engaged. Calls, messages, even social media posts showed affection, shared selfies, and captions that painted a picture of a happy, committed couple. Fans of the show could trace the timeline, posts with hearts, tag locations, snippets of shared dinners, and on-camera moments filled with laughter and closeness. But once the approval came through, something shifted. Affection slowed, the warmth disappeared from everyday interactions, and even small gestures that had felt routine suddenly became rare. The camera caught the way he avoided sitting close, the way compliments were less frequent, and how hand-holding or casual touches faded into memory. It raised questions for viewers and for Lisa herself. Was this natural stress post-approval? A relief that triggered complacency? Or had Daniel's goals subtly changed? Perhaps he felt less pressure to maintain the illusion of connection now that the legal milestones were met. Fans watching on social media noted the contrast too. Captions became neutral, photos more staged than spontaneous, the personal touches replaced by curated snapshots that suggested distance. It wasn't just emotional, it extended to practical matters as well. Joint finances were still avoided, discussions about shared expenses minimal or dismissed, and plans for future investments or shared property rarely mentioned. The pattern reinforced suspicion that the relationship dynamic had tilted. And then came the comment that left Lisa reeling, captured briefly on the show, but echoed in fan discussions online. Daniel repeatedly talked about moving to New York alone. It wasn't framed as a plan for both of them, not a shared dream, but as an individual objective. For Lisa, and for anyone watching, It was a quiet alarm, a signal that perhaps the engagement and approval had marked a pivot point, a subtle shift in priorities, where affection, attention, and shared responsibility were no longer guaranteed, leaving a shadow over the relationship's future that would grow more apparent with every following interaction. Every time Daniel mentioned moving to New York alone, it hit like a small but persistent alarm bell for Lisa. On camera, it seemed casual, almost offhand, but the repetition made it impossible to ignore. Each time he framed it as ambition, a personal goal, it sounded reasonable. Many people chase opportunities, relocate for work, or pursue dreams independently. But when ambition comes wrapped in repeated statements about leaving, about acting alone, it starts to feel less like a goal and more like a pattern, a signal that the relationship might not be a shared journey. Viewers watching closely could sense the tension building, every offhand comment piled on questions, doubts, and unease. The immigration timeline added a deeper layer. With permanent residency approaching, Daniel's freedom to make independent decisions without legal constraints increased. Before approval, staying connected, maintaining appearances, and keeping Lisa engaged had strategic weight. Once status was guaranteed, the balance shifted. Suddenly, his mobility, legal security, and potential for independence were established, giving him a position of power that hadn't existed before. From a psychological perspective, this is where ambition intersects with strategy. Was he planning to pursue his dreams honestly, or was isolation a calculated move to maximize control while minimizing shared responsibility? On social media and in fan discussions, viewers debated whether repeated references to moving alone were a natural expression of personal goals or a subtle form of emotional distance, signaling priorities that might no longer include partnership. The show captured her unease, her growing questions, and the way every statement about New York alone added weight to suspicions she had already been forming over months. And just when the tension seemed to peak, the producers dropped a hint that changed everything. A revelation about Daniel's past, a piece of history that Lisa hadn't known and that viewers would only fully grasp in the next confrontation, leaving everyone on edge about what the true pattern behind his actions really meant. The tension in the room shifted the moment the producers brought it up. On screen, Daniel's past wasn't a secret, but for Lisa, the revelation landed like a weight she hadn't expected. Publicly documented on the show, it was clear that Daniel had applied for a fiancé visa with another American woman 3 years earlier, and that application had been denied. At first glance, it might seem like an isolated event, a failed attempt that anyone could experience. But paired with everything she had noticed since their engagement, it painted a different picture. Every hidden appointment, every solo lawyer consultation, every cool gesture after approval started to fit a pattern. Fans and commentators could see the sequence. One failed visa attempt, followed by a new relationship, carefully documented and recorded for the cameras. For Lisa, this wasn't just a detail. It was a clue, a lens through which every action since meeting Daniel had to be re-examined. Viewers could almost feel her mind racing, connecting dots that had been quietly there all along. Was this just coincidence, a string of unfortunate timing, or was it something more deliberate, a step two in a calculated plan that she hadn't realized she was part of? The contrast between public image and private behavior became sharper with every scene, and the cameras captured her silent struggle, the way her hands tightened, her breathing quickened, the internal questioning that had no easy answers. And then came the question that had been building beneath every interaction, the one that struck at the core of their relationship and at Daniel's intentions. If I wasn't American, would you have chosen me? The words hung in the air, heavy and charged, a culmination of months of subtle shifts, quiet manipulations, and unanswered questions. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was revealing. A mirror reflecting everything Lisa had suspected, and the audience could feel the suspense, waiting for what his reaction might truly reveal. The room seemed to shrink around Lisa as she asked the question she had rehearsed 100 times in her mind. If I wasn't American, would you have chosen me? Cameras captured every detail, every subtle shift. Daniel's eyes flicked away, then back, his posture stiffening ever so slightly, shoulders tensing, a brief tightening of his jaw. The pause stretched longer than any word he could have spoken, and in that silence, the weight of the moment settled. Viewers could feel it, almost physically, the kind of quiet that makes a heart pound, the kind of pause that says more than 1,000 denials. In that instant, silence became a language. It wasn't an outright confession, but it carried an undeniable meaning. Psychologically, it's fascinating. Under pressure, people often reveal more through what they withhold than what they say. He didn't answer. He didn't protest. He didn't attempt to reframe the question. And for Lisa, the absence of a response spoke volumes. It forced her to confront a reality she had been sensing for months. Affection, warmth, and commitment weren't just wavering, they had been conditional. Legally, he might have been free to make his own choices, but morally, the stakes were entirely different. Her trust had been invested, and the pause underscored a divide between moral obligation and personal strategy, between being a partner and being a step in someone else's plan. The counterpoint exists. Silence doesn't always equal guilt. People freeze, hesitate, or weigh how to answer difficult questions. But in context, the pattern of avoidance, hidden paperwork, cooled affection, and repeated references to independence, the weight behind his pause was unmistakable. The emotional fallout hit immediately. Lisa's eyes filled with the realization that some truths are understood without words, that sometimes the loudest answer is the one left unspoken. Her posture sagged, her breathing caught, and for anyone watching, it was a moment heavy with betrayal, with heartbreak, and with the kind of shock that lingers long after the screen goes dark. Stepping back, the story of Lisa and Daniel isn't just about forms, appointments, or hidden paperwork, it's about power. Immigration relationships inherently carry unequal leverage, whether intended or not. One partner often holds a legal advantage, and that imbalance can quietly shift dynamics over time. Viewers watching can't help but project their own fears onto the situation. What would they do if they were in Lisa's shoes, constantly second-guessing motives, wondering whether affection is real or transactional? It's natural to react emotionally, but it raises a critical question. Are we responding to the paperwork itself or to the insecurities it triggers? From a psychological perspective, both matter. Accountability exists on both sides. Partners should be transparent, but human perception and prior experiences shape how secrecy or distance is interpreted. Lisa's gut reactions, informed by months of small cues, cooled affection, solo legal consultations, repeated references to moving alone, were telling. Yet, they also intersected with natural anxieties anyone might feel in such a high-stakes, publicized relationship. For viewers, it becomes a dance between rational analysis and emotional resonance. The loops planted throughout the story start to close as we revisit key moments. Solo lawyer appointments now reveal not just independence, but a pattern of behavior that hinted at prioritizing self-interest. The post-approval affection drop makes sense in context. The relationship's emotional investment was recalibrated once legal stability was achieved. The overheard 2 more years, permanent, then freedom call fits into the broader framework of planning and strategy. Each element aligns, giving viewers clarity on what might have been invisible at first glance. Yet one question remains unresolved. Did Daniel ever truly consider a future built together beyond the paperwork? Or was the relationship always contingent on convenience and circumstance? That lingering uncertainty keeps viewers on edge, turning reflection into anticipation, and subtly challenges anyone watching to question what loyalty and love mean when legal status and personal ambition collide. After everything Lisa experienced, the hidden paperwork, the cooled affection, the silences, the repeated mentions of independence, the room finally settled into a strange calm. On camera, she leaned back, her expression thoughtful, almost reflective, as if she were replaying every moment in fast motion inside her head. Viewers could feel the shift, from the tension and chaos of confrontations to a quieter, sharper consideration. What does it mean to build a relationship on deadlines, on approvals, on legal milestones? Can love survive when permanence is guaranteed on paper, but trust and emotional investment remain fragile? It's a question that cuts both ways. For some, the structure of rules, visas, and timelines might clarify intentions, provide boundaries, even strengthen bonds. For others, those same rules can amplify inequities, exposing gaps between legal obligation and emotional commitment. Watching Lisa process it all, the audience is forced to wrestle with the same tension. Was she ever truly a partner in the eyes of someone she loved? Or was she, in part, a step towards someone else's goal? The answer isn't absolute. Her journey shows how easily affection and strategy can intertwine, how legal frameworks can obscure the real measures of care, and how silence, patterns, and small gestures reveal intentions more than any declaration ever could. By the end, the narrative closes most loops. We see the paper trail, understand the cool defection, recognize the prior visa attempt, and hear the revealing phone call. But one thread remains: Daniel's long-term plan. Where does ambition, independence, and strategy intersect with the possibility of shared life? Viewers are left questioning whether the trajectory we saw was an anomaly or part of a larger pattern, a dynamic replicated across other couples who changed after approval. And that leads naturally to the next story we'll explore: patterns across 90-day couples once the green card or approval changes the rules. How many relationships withstand permanence when initial motivations shift? The answers aren't simple, but for Lisa, and for anyone watching, the tension, the heartbreak, and the lessons linger long after the screen fades, keeping every viewer hooked, thinking, and anticipating what comes next.